On June 23, 1942, the ground crew at RAF Pembrey heard the unmistakable growl of a fighter engine slicing through the Welsh air. It wasn't the sound of a British Merlin engine. It wasn't American. It was something far heavier, sharper, and more violent. Minutes later, a sleek, unfamiliar silhouette appeared over the treetops, dark, fast, and absolutely not friendly. The airfield went into chaos. Men scrambled for cover. Someone shouted that an enemy fighter was attempting a strafing run. But then something unbelievable happened. The aircraft lowered its landing gear. The men stared, stunned, as the Luftwaffe's most feared weapon, the Focke-Wulf 190, glided down and touched its wheels onto British soil as gently as a feather. No attack, no gunfire, no resistance. Just a perfect landing by a pilot who clearly thought he was exactly where he belonged. Seconds later, the canopy slid open, and a German officer climbed out, calmly expecting to be greeted by Luftwaffe mechanics. When he saw the Spitfires parked nearby, his confident expression shattered. The realization hit him like a gunshot. He had landed at a British base. And with that, Armin Faber had just delivered Germany's most dangerous aircraft directly into the hands of the enemy. What made this moment extraordinary wasn't just that he landed the plane intact, it was the timing. For 8 months, the FW-190 had dominated every air battle it entered. Allied pilots were shocked at its speed, its ferocious climb, and especially its roll rate. The aircraft could flip sideways like a dancer, leaving pursuing fighters helpless. In dogfights, Spitfires were shredded. American pilots in Europe described encounters with the FW-190 as flying into a buzzsaw. Losses were mounting, and nobody knew why. The aircraft was too new, too advanced, and remained completely mysterious. Intelligence reports were filled with guesswork. Engineers tried to model the fighter from grainy photographs and incomplete eyewitness accounts. They were desperate for details. The British had never been able to capture one. The Germans never crashed one intact. Until now, Faber, disoriented during aerial combat over the Channel, had followed a coastline that he thought was in France. His compass error and a momentary lapse in situational awareness changed the course of aviation history. When British forces surrounded him and took him into custody, they realized the magnitude of what had fallen into their hands. Even before the pilot was marched away, engineers were already circling the aircraft, stunned at the opportunity before them. Within hours, a message was sent to intelligence and test pilots. The prize was priceless: an untouched, fully operational Focke-Wulf 190A3, Germany's cutting-edge fighter at the peak of its dominance. When British test pilot Captain Eric Brown arrived to study the plane, he immediately understood the excitement. Brown was no ordinary pilot. He was one of the most experienced aviators in the world, fluent in German, and capable of pushing aircraft to their limits with a level of technical insight you could match. When he climbed into the cockpit of the FW-190, he saw an engineering philosophy totally different from anything Britain or America was producing. The controls were brutally efficient. The cockpit layout was shockingly logical. The plane felt like it had been designed for a pilot in combat, not for a committee back home. Brown later described the engine as a monster, delivering surges of power that overwhelmed British fighters. The aircraft responded instantly. When he tested its roll performance, he finally understood why Allied pilots were dying so quickly. The British now knew the truth. The FW-190 wasn't just a fighter, it was a technological leap. But then Brown tested something unexpected. While the plane was superior in many ways, it had one weakness, a subtle but exploitable flaw in its handling at low speeds and during tight turns. What seemed like a small limitation would become the key to countering it in combat. Intelligence officers immediately documented the findings, creating new tactical manuals for pilots across multiple Allied air forces. Training programs changed overnight. Fighter groups heading to Europe were briefed using the exact insights gained from Faber's captured aircraft. What happened next was dramatic. Losses in combat began to drop. Pilots who once felt helpless now had confidence. They understood how to force the FW-190 into its weak zones, how to counter its roll rate, and how to maneuver with survival in mind. The aircraft that had terrorized Allied squadrons was no longer invincible. All because one pilot became disoriented and mistook the coast of Wales for France. Armin Faber's mistake became one of the greatest intelligence gifts of the entire war. He had unknowingly exposed Germany's most advanced secrets, reshaped Allied tactics, and saved hundreds of lives simply by landing in the wrong place. History is often shaped by strategy, intelligence, and planning, but sometimes it changes because of something far more human: confusion, fatigue, or a momentary lapse in judgment. One wrong turn, one mistaken landing, one pilot who trusted the coastline he saw beneath him, and because of that, the air war over Europe would never be the same. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone someone who loves WW2 history. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next episode.